Hello, and here's a video I've been wanting to make for the last couple days because I found something I think is completely awesome, but it's going to take a little bit of editing and some time to make, and I just wanted to get this information out there to my channel. And it just so happens that today when I wanted to make my video, I've really got nowhere where I'm currently at to have an office or anything. So I'm out here in a patio area, and it just so happens to be construction workers that showed up today to work outside. So I don't know what the actual background noise level annoyance is going to be, but here is the lesson as quick as I can. Or just like a quick overview of what I want to tell you guys today. What this is about is just it's amazing in that it's got a way to chord tone solo, which is just looking at something out there that caught my eye. Sorry. It's a way to chord tone solo that will give you every chord that you need in a key and allow you to even move to other keys if you so desire. And all in one scale shape. And it doesn't work. This thing will work in other scale shapes, but it doesn't work this easily in other shapes. It will allow you to also very easily make modal chord progressions. A modal chord progression is not playing in a mode per se, like a standard modal sound over one chord that's going on for a couple of bars. To me, a modal chord progression is something that starts on a chord that's other than the number one chord in the major key or the sixth chord for the what would be the considered minor, the minor chord of the major key. Don't worry about that. If that I know that'll throw beginners off, but people who know will understand that. Anyways, so if you started on another chord, like say you start in C major, but you want to have a Dorian sound, you'd start on the 2 chord, which is a D minor. And if you start at that progression, go somewhere and come back to that progression, I call that a modal progression because you're making it D minor using the chords of C major. Make sense? All right, let's move on. You can do that with what I'm about to show you super easy. And that's what's crazy about this, using geometry, a simple shape on the fretboard. But also the kicker about this was that it was just so mind-blowing to me once this jumped out at me. And I need to thank some people, but let's get to the point. That this was the very, very, very first thing that I ever learned on guitar 30-something years ago or more. And here I am 30 years later, realizing that after I finally got scales all over the fretboard and realized that there was still missing pieces, now I can noodle. But I'm not really making that impactful guitar solo like my heroes. And aside from good chops, good attention to rhythm, and great phrasing, which are all key elements to those solos, one way that they don't noodle is to be focused on the chord tones of the chord of the moment. And so my latest thinking is to get to chord tones. And what I finally found this little thing to help me get to all these chord tones under my fingers in perhaps one solo, even though this is in one area of the fretboard, and it doesn't tell you all up and down the fretboard like my other methods for knowing the scale on the fretboard as one fretboard that you can move in any direction with instead of 7 cumbersome mental patterns that are hard to think your way out of. Anyways, that's in my other lessons. This goes back to the very first thing I ever learned, and I couldn't believe it that this had just escaped me all these years. So the very first thing that my guitar taught me, and as on acoustic guitar that your beginner guitar teacher may have taught you, is these open chords. G chord. Here's C major. Now we're going to use D minor here instead of D major to stay within the key of C. There's also, D major, but that's not in the key. So, and this fits our pattern here that we're going to show you. D minor, A minor, E minor, F, just using the half shape down here. Yeah, we can play the cowboy chord, but we'll just need to concentrate on this guy here. And we already went over G. We already did these 6 chords. Now, of course, there's the 7th chord, that B diminished. That leads to C. But that's in there and not so common with your rock and pop chord progressions of your most basic songs. Now, so how can I use that to chord tone solo so mind-blowingly easy? Well, just think about all those chords in one key are in the same exact spot on the neck. So that means that there is a way to have these shapes in the same exact spot anywhere up and down the fretboard. So where do they come from? They're within a scale, and the scale shape at that moment, I remember learning the C major scale. We're talking about a key, and so in this example, since we're using these open chords, this is going to be in this area, the C major scale. Because, let me show you. I learned that scale. But that scale is also, I learned it down here. My guitar teacher said, oh, this shape has this funny name, and this is the pattern you want to learn here. Now, we're starting on E, not C, and C, D, E. Let's keep in mind that is the 3rd note in the C major scale. C1, D2, E3. But, so that gives it this name because you're starting from the 3rd note. If you're starting from the 1, Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, back to Ionian. Doesn't matter for our lesson today, but if for the people who aren't familiar with all these crazy names and modes yet, don't worry about it. Just know that you're going to hear this called the Phrygian shape, and you don't have to think about modes or get confused about modes or anything like that, even though that is a name of one of the modes and it makes sense when you're starting to dive into modes. But let's not worry about that today. Let's just say that you've heard that and it's thrown you off. Don't let it throw you off today. Just know it as a regular shape. That's going to go E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So this is our shape right here. And it's just a great shape because this structure also houses the 7-note structure, 7 notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, houses 5-note scales within it. The pentatonic scales, 5 notes, pentatonic scales. And it houses 3 different shapes, which will come up in a little bit. But anyways, to try to keep this around 10 minutes. So here, that's our tool for soloing, knowing that shape. Now let's see where these chord tones fit into there. Let's see, does this C major C chord fit in there? And do we get 1, 3, 5? Sure we do. How about that F chord? Bad note in there, but step, step, back to a chord tone. In that case, the root. The G major chord. By the way, C, the 1 chord. Above that F chord, the 4 chord. Below it, the G chord, the 5 chord. Now, we need 3 more chords, and those would be the minor chords. They're occur from the open strings here. So we have E minor, the 3, we have A, the 4, A minor, and we have D minor, the 2nd. So, one great way that we're going to show you on paper, you can write a chart, but just to go give you this idea for those who can grab it just like this. You on this side of the scale here, where you have these three notes right here are going to be your 5, 1, 4. 5, 1, 4. Just like when you've heard the blues. 1, 4, 1, 5, 4, 1, 4, 2, 5, 4 going to 5, not the 2 chord. Anyways, so that 415 is also and likewise, if you need the 3 chord, you're gonna know the top is 3, the next note down is 6 for the 6 chord, and the next note down is 2 for the 2 chord. So in other words, if I was playing this scale shape up here, just catering to the 1 chord. Catering to the 4. I catered to the 5, then I catered to the 1, and that's what gave that series of notes a melodic flow. So there's your secret sauce to what's going on in some of these solos that you're hearing, and likewise with minor. I went 2, 6, 3, 1 to give that some sense to those basically notes that were random notes picked out of that scale that now are having a melodic kind of flow to them because I'm singling out chord tones, and I was pretty basic about it. But to make them a little fancy, you'll add in since you know the scale shape, you can add in the other notes, like I'll cater to C here. Just chord tones, steps. Mixing of steps and chord tones, but there's so many chord tones in there, the steps sound like steps that are catering to the chord tone, and there's suddenly some sense versus me just going. Where was that going? I didn't cater to anything. I didn't think about any chords. I just started pulling random notes out of this scale pattern. So like a scale pattern, they kind of sounded good together, but there was nothing that kind of went anywhere or had to sound like it came to an end. Those were all matching scale tones, but they didn't really, right? So cater to chord tones, and right out of this, what's called, you might know the Phrygian shape. Now there we started on the 5 and walked down to the 1. How did I know that was the 5? Because the 5 is always above the 1, and it's a mirror image on the G string, or on the E string E string to E string is the same. Put a little trick in there for you. I also played a secondary dominant, which you can put over all these chords so easily to jazz them up. Like if I want to go from 1 to 2, oops, I went from 1 to 6. Let's try that again. Let's go from 1 to 2. Sounded okay. Let's put a secondary dominant right before the 1, which is all that means is a 5-to-1 resolution. Chords always love to come from, or feel resolved when they're coming from a 5 chord. So what's the 5? The 5 is not necessarily, there's one 5 in the C major scale, but you can put a 5 in front of any of the chords. You're borrowing it from another scale, sure, but you don't have to think about it all that complexly. You can just go put it in there from any chord, and it's always above the note you want. So if I wanted a 5-to-1 resolution on the 2, I'm going to choose the A string, but whatever note of the D. And now we're no longer, it's the D minor shape, but it's the 2 chord, and in this case, the 2 chord is G. Because where did I even start here? We are starting on F, right? So that goes to show you, like, if I want my song to be in the parent key of F major, all I need to know is my A string, C, D, E, F. Someone calls out G is the parent key, right? Or someone says, oh, we're going to play, this progression starts on the 2 chord of F. So we would just use F, and there's our 2 chord. Or if someone says, we're going to play in Dorian, and I want G Dorian, right? So here's my G. Here's my G on this string. Now here's my 2 chord. Now where I know where that is, I know where my scale is. There's my 1 of the parent scale. There's the 6. There's the 3. Thinking in reference from the parent scale, which is all you really need to do to get through making chord progressions. You can what I call over theorize it, or you could be like totally correct. And I wanted to start pinning some other YouTube teacher on always like really just explaining these things from this concrete, deep theoretical level that I don't think people who are beginners really want to get lost in. It doesn't have to happen that way. I think people just want to play and learn things quick, and then they can figure out like the deeper theoretical underpinnings of this stuff. So if this was the 1 chord, let's say our 1 you could turn your 2 Dorian chord. Since you're starting your progression on that, you might suddenly want to call that the 1 chord because that's your 1. You're going back to that 1. So then you would theoretically rearrange all these. This would be the 5. This would be the something way before that. Like it just, these number concepts now are something I have to think about, but I don't need to think about that. I just know where they're located on the fretboard. Anyways, I was getting to that secondary dominant. Let's do it. So 1, we're still on the 1. Beat 4, let's say, then the secondary dominant, which is just kind of gives a nice little piece that fits in between both of those chords. And you can do that on any chord, and it's a way to pick up. And the reason I'm telling you that is because this trick set is really cool, but what I think what you'll come up against, what I come up against, is that you're like, okay, wow, cool, I just figured this out, it's awesome. Then you're like, well, wait a minute. I mean, these chords are kind of all in the same key, and that's really cool, but all my favorite songs are using borrowed chords, and they got little cool little pieces that you have to theoretically explain. Why did they put the E major chord in Hotel California when it was supposed to be an E minor chord? And, you know, all that stuff comes from these big theoretical explanations, and people think, wow, they must have known all this theory, and they probably did, but you don't have to approach it like that. You can approach these things because you just know that's a cool trick that you might even learn from another song or from a cool YouTube lesson. So here's our 20-minute mark. Let's call the lesson done there, and I'll make something with charts on graph paper coming up soon to keep this channel what it is and help it start growing again. So I hope this helped. If you have any questions, if anything was like, wait, what did you just say? Of course, leave it in the comments. I will totally try to explain it. And not that I go back to my channel and read the comments ever, as you know, notice, but let's hope I do, and that you have a great day, because you're awesome. And oh, I wanted to thank Tim Clay from Guitar Scales and Theory or something like that. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of your Facebook group. You know, when you save your favorites, it just shows up. You don't have to remember the names. So Tim Clay, because he posted a chart that suddenly gave me this idea when I say it wasn't exactly this lesson, but I saw what was available when he showed that this shape contained all those chords. Actually, it was this shape and the pentatonic scales. And I started thinking about it, and I said, wait a minute. And I started mapping things out, and it just jumped out at me like what this could imply, what this contains. Speaking of that, I did forget the, so I guess we're going to 25 minutes here, sorry. Pentatonic scales are in here, this one. Pentatonics can also guide your solo, but the difference between the pentatonic framework and the actual complete scale framework is the half steps. That's the part in the major scale where there's a half step instead of a whole step. So after do, re, mi, fa, and between the end, do, and ti and do. Okay, so that was just kind of a random thing there. Those half steps will create some cool lines. That's why I choose to mostly use the, I find myself mostly just grabbing the scale when I need it. But you can think about these pentatonic shapes here. There's a little secret to this pentatonic. I'll go over a little bit. You'll notice that these chords, the major and minor, are all a minor third or 3 frets away from each other. So we have the 3 and the 5, the 6 and the 1. These are relationships, by the way, but we won't go into there in this lesson. And you have the 2 and the 4. So you could even think of this as the Phrygian Mixolydian combination of darker scales, the natural scales of natural minor and natural major, 6 and 1, and brighter minor, 2, and brighter major, 4. Anyways, they all use a pentatonic scale, but there's 3 shapes. You can learn it this way, 3 shapes that work. Here's the basic blues box pattern: 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. When you're on the 3 or the 5 chord, that's the pentatonic shape you would use. Although the pentatonic for the 5 chord kind of misses a note. That's why I would just use the full major scale pattern for that Phrygian pattern. But anyways, the next one is this scale shape. You would go with I don't know what number it is in the pentatonic series, but it's the one that goes like 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, slide up, 1, 2, then back down, 1, 3. Now technically, those are all the same exact scale shape. You're just toggling down 1 fret, and then the string that you are going away from there becomes the same as the bottom string. So in other words, now, and it's almost like that scale, it's like the upside down version where we have 1, 3 and 1, 3 on top of each other on the regular box. We have them on top. And the regular not box, but pentatonic scale. Anyways, the third shape is this one here. We're going to start from our original root, we're going to move up one, and we're going to go like this. 1, 2. Then we're going to go 1, 3. So these need a diagram to show you, but if you're trying to follow along, picking up your guitar. All those three shapes fit in the box. You can know them like that as three single shapes. It's not hard for me to remember. But if you also wanted to conceptualize it, you can just think that you're playing the same pentatonic shape. If you're playing, let's say I'm playing the 1 or the 4, I'm on the middle. We're going to call this the middle string because we're dealing with our chords come from this, this, or this to get the 5, like we said earlier, 5, 1, and 4, or 3, 6, and 2. So if I'm playing on this, the 1 or the 6, I'm going to use this pentatonic, and I'm going to play the same one as this one, blues box, that I played up from the 6th string. You'd have to break it up to see that you've got that box that's only 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 3 strings and 2 frets. So I'll just play it from down here, but I have to, it looks different as a complete shape because you're breaking up that box because of the string difference, the tuning difference between the G and the B string that always screws everything up, that I've always said on all my lessons. I always point that out. And then you'd have a big, you can just call this the big shape, where you have to stretch 2 frets. And then the small shape where you, and that's always 2 strings. Well, that can throw off beginners. So let me just kind of go on here. If I'm with the 4 chord or the 2 chord that's on this lower, well, I'm going to play the, I know I got one on top, and then I know I got one of the smaller on top of that. Then we've got the broken box. Whoops. What I call the tic-tac-toe board, because if you just analyze it, let's go down here and analyze it. You've got C, D, or even right here, so we can go all whole notes here, starting with D, E, G, A, F, G, again, 5 notes there. It's like a, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like a tic-tac-toe box, even though we're not playing any of those middle notes per se. I'm going to leave you with this concept here for our 30-minute video now. Speaking of notes in between, one value of chord tone soloing is because you're now outlining the chords so clearly to the listener, those outside notes or quote-unquote wrong notes that everyone says, oh, there really are no wrong notes. Well, that's when that comes from, because now that you're nailing the chord tones so much and catering to the chord tones and traveling to chord tones, you can actually grab those non-scale notes as like special tensions and flavors and colors as ways to describe them for your solos. So for example, if I'm going, I just threw some junk notes in there and it worked out because I put an expectation to your ear that we were catering to a chord shape, in this case F. In the scale. And that's clearly not in the scale, but it's the flat 7th of that chord. once you start making that sound like a flat seventh, that kind of makes it a 5-to-1 relationship if you want to move to the chord just above it. In this case, below it, I guess, would be the sonically above it, physically below it. Back to that one chord. Hope you guys have a great day. Thanks, Tim Clay, for making this happen. Thank you to Rick Beato, I guess, because he did also a secondary dominant lesson that I saw right after that, and that started giving me a clue about secondary dominants. However, it was so complex, I didn't know how I'd grab them and make it easy to combine with this lesson. And then I'd like to thank this guy who does these YouTube shorts all the time. You've seen him before. He says, "Get off the cigarettes," and I'll just leave. That guy, Brandon Dion, I believe is his name. One of the greatest teachers I've seen because of his personality, along with his great lessons that also simplify things. And he showed me he unlocked it for me because he made it simple, and I understood now 5-to-1 relationships and using what's called a secondary dominant. Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. You rock. Thank you guys for watching and listening, because all you people rock. If you want to you're watching me to get better, man, I think you rock because, well, I don't know. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.